Live from the con floor at Heroes Con 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina, you're listening to Legends of the Panel podcast, proud member of the Geek Culture Cast Network. Hey guys, Legends of the Panel podcast on the Heroes Con 2016 floor. I am here with Chris Campana. We're about to do a walk and talk about his upcoming First World that we just got in our hands. We've been Kickstarter backers for a little bit. I just spent a lot of money on a commission. I know KJ's got a commission going. I can't wait because this is going to be on the back of the studio wall right next to the Daredevil and Kingpin that I got here last year. But I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over right now to Mr. Campana, and he's going to talk a little bit about himself and his project he's got going on.
Greetings. I'm not really that good at talking about myself, so I will just say that I've got the First World graphic novel, collects the first 4 issues of First World. I'm working on a book called Way of the Gray with Red Anvil Comics, which is about this, it's actually a really cool story. It's about this Viking who has been victorious in every battle ever and is hunting down this old wise dragon to die an honorable death. Besides that, I'm on the con circuit, 30 shows in 1 year.
Does it feel like 30 years?
It feels like 30 years in a week. Yeah, it's but I love it. So
we caught you on like hour 30. You had just driven down from Jersey, almost in zombie mode, and you came in with a really peppy cohort that's kind of been running the show and peddling your wares, and really, almost like a pit bull getting really selling your stuff. She did a great job. I mean, she conned me out of an awesome commission. I'm really stoked about it. But yeah, so we saw you were super wiped. You've been busy since you've gotten here, and finally, this is actually your first walk of the con. You've been here for 3 days, and you're finally getting a chance to walk the floor.
You know, it's kind of like it's this weird thing because I'll never complain ever about being busy at a show. That's what you want to do. This is my job. So I come here to work. Socializing is great. It's cool to see some people you only see like once or twice a year. But I want to be behind that table. I want to be chained to the table. When I go back to the hotel, I want to be chained to the desk at the hotel and working. This is my full-time gig. It's what I do. And but I can't lie. When you get those couple of minutes, maybe half hour to walk the floor, I love it, but I'd rather be working.
So KJ just stepped away finally. He was buying more swag while we started the interview. I'm going to hand it back over to him. I'm sure he's got some questions for you, too.
I always have questions for this man because, I mean, how many times have we – it's been 4 years, I guess, we've known each other now, back and forth at cons?
At least 4, because I think Kantara came out in 11. It might be 5 years.
So it's been 5 years.
Been
you and I have
5 years.
been seeing each other at different shows. And
Yep.
I mean, I've backed your Kickstarters several different times now. And I've bought art from you.
Yep.
And, I think one of the things I like the most about your stuff is that it's different from everyone else, right?
Yeah, that's the blessing and the curse.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Come on over and talk, So we actually got Chris. As we're walking the floor, he's actually hitting up with several of the other artists around. So, he's meeting up with people. And, this is Mark Texera. And, he's sitting here. Mark's working on a piece, and we're just running away here.
It's really funny because as we're walking around the con floor with the mic in his mouth and we're kind of walking in tote, it's almost like we're doing his live-in biography walking around and everyone's just kind of staring at Chris, but here he goes. So,
yeah. So I think one of the big things I find about your artwork is, and you and I have talked about this before, as you said, your artwork's unique, but it's so unique, when you've positioned it to some of the companies before, they said, your art's really unique, we like it because it's unique. But then they say, but it's a problem because it's unique, you're not able to really pick up somebody else's stuff and just run with it.
It's doing this kind of stuff, the industry, it likes to know what sells. And when certain things sell, the industry, flows towards that and says, okay, this sold once. We're going to have somebody who draws similar to this because it's already been a proven seller. So because I don't know, I just don't draw like everybody else. I don't have a house style. So people tend to say, wow, really, really great work. I would buy it for myself, but I don't know if it's, if it's going to move.
Yeah. Now, so we were already
Which clearly it does.
Yeah.
But you have to, what everybody says to me is you have to find that one editor. Now, I've gotten gigs. I mean, I've worked for companies and I've done, work here and there. But as far as the big two, to be quite honest, what I always get is this is gorgeous, this is really great work, you're definitely publishable, all these kind of things. But we want somebody to take over the book who already draws like the other guy. Hey, Ransom, don't walk like that away from me. By the way, most talented guy in the room. I said that just for you.
So, we were just saying that First World, the graphic novel, has come out.
Yes.
And you've already got work going on the next parts. You said You've already got some of the artwork for issue 5.
Yes, issue 5 is written. It's all thumbnailed. I just haven't done all the interiors as of yet. But I've got that story planned out for probably the next 3 years. I kind of know exactly what's going on. And I'm also working on Way of the Gray, which is a graphic novel, which is about this Viking guy, like I was just saying before. And that is something that I am just amped to do because we're actually figuring out a way, spoiler alert, to work it into the mythos of First World.
Now, I'll let you go over there and talk. So he's now talking to Lee Weeks, another awesome artist who's doing a commission. It looks like Supergirl on the table there, and he's just doing some inking on it. And he's got some great inked pages here that are in his portfolio. And it's we're doing the same thing as we're walking along. We're seeing that it's Sunday afternoon. It's after 4:00, and we're seeing that some of these guys, some of the artists are starting to shut down. Of course, they've got to get home. They've got other careers outside of just being an artist. Some of these guys work a regular job, but as Chris already said, this is Chris's gig, and this is his thing, right? So
sorry about that.
No. Chris, man, you're walking the floor. This is your first chance to see who's here still. And we were just saying that some of the independent artists that obviously, aren't doing this as their full-time gig at this point are starting to pack up and head out because they've got jobs they have to get back to. Right. And, that's the thing. I mean, I'm glad to hear that this is now your full-time gig.
Well, when we first met, I guess like we were saying, it was 2011. I was, doing what I had to do retail-wise, working, 50 hours a week doing that and then drawing whenever I could. But what I noticed was, or what I felt at first, was that the work was suffering because I couldn't really devote the kind of time I wanted to. And for me personally, I kind of always thought if you had a plan B, you never go after your plan A as hard as maybe you should.
Yeah.
Because you have that safety net. So my son got a little older, and I tell this story all the time. I had given up, going after my gig when he was born because kind of going freelance is very difficult when you first have a kid. And, I decided just to get gigs and work. He was about 14, and he wanted to go to Syracuse University because he wants to be a broadcaster, which is in college for now. So we went up to Syracuse, and, sir? We're doing a podcast, but I wanted to say hi. Who are you? So, I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
Don't worry about it.
It's just, like I said, this is rare to see everybody, and some of these people are just such inspirations, and to be able to, it's kind of like when you get to call a teacher the first name and not, like, Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing.
That first time when all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're a real, adult.
Yeah, and, like, now for these couple of years that, I'm full-time, calling them friend is kind of a cool thing. But anyway, so we go to the college, and we get in the car afterwards, and he says, I say, Jaden, I don't want you to talk about it. I want you to be about it. I want you to see what the dream is. That's why we're here. And then he said to me, he's like, well, Dad, what was your dream? Because I never told him I gave up my dream gig to raise him because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And so I told him at that point I wanted to be, I always wanted to be an artist. And he looked at me, he's like, well, what's stopping you? And I was like, you know what? Nothing. Nothing's stopping me. I'm stopping me. So the part-time gig, part-time art gig, for me personally, it works for some people, but it wasn't working for me. So I jumped off the cliff, and I just went as hard as I could and got as I worked as hard as I could, got as many shows booked as I could, and thankfully now it's full time, and I have enough gigs to keep me going, enough commissions, and I'm lucky enough to build a big enough fan base where, without them I'd be doing nothing. So that's the number one thing.
Yeah. What you're saying is true. If you've got a plan B, if you've got that backup, then you're right. You don't tend to push as hard as you might as if this is your real passion, your dream to go to.
Right.
I think the other thing goes along with it. For the time we've known each other, I've seen how things have progressed. I've seen you've gone, 3 successful Kickstarters now.
Yep.
And, are you going to continue to do the Kickstarters? You're going to kind of go, people have talked about Patreon. They've talked about some of these other funding type of situations. And I'm not sure, if there's, go.
The Kickstarter stuff, it's always been the plan to not have to do a Kickstarter. When I do any kind of crowdfunding, I try to get more out of it than what I'm actually kickstarting. If you're kickstarting one issue or one trade or whatever, I try to make it where the money extends to more stuff. So I'm not one of those guys, and it's your prerogative, you do what you want. But I don't want to be thought of as one of those people who kickstarts every issue of everything they do all the time, because I want to make the work make the money. The Kickstarter is great to do exactly what it's saying, to kickstart the project, but it should not be the only lifeline to the project. When you get that money from your Kickstarter, you need to book your shows, you need to get out there, and you need to do exactly what you say you were going to do with the money. Hey, Spring Lake. So that's the most important thing. So I don't want to kickstart the next trade. And now that First World's been, sort of acquired by Red Anvil Comics and the good guy, Joe and Dave over there, I don't know that I'll have to because we're in previews and we'll see what happens that way. And Way of the Gray is in previews. So, and there's some other stuff that I'm doing where I hope that as long as it keeps going the way it's going, I won't have to.
Yeah.
But because I love the fans so much and I want to make sure they have the book, if it comes to that and I could get that kind of support again, I would do whatever it took to get them the books.
Do you consider yourself, I shouldn't say do you consider yourself, I consider you to be probably one of the most successful independent comic creators I know.
Thank you. I'm in like that weird spot where I would say that I'm probably, and I hope this doesn't come across egotistical in any way, but I say that I've paid my dues to the point where I'm kind of at the top of indie, but I haven't hit the mainstream, and that's okay. You can't sort of gauge your. Somebody asked me recently, how do you measure your success? And a couple of years ago, I would have measured it by, working for this guy or working for this company or whatever. But now it's more, I measure my success because guys like you, come to the table and they become friends and fan base and stuff like that. I measure my success by the fact that I can walk into a show and I get to see my friends who have also supported me and they consistently come back. My success is measured by the love of the fans and the outpouring of, congratulations and love that I get for the stuff that I do. So I guess I'm an upper tier indie guy or a successful indie guy. I just like the fact that I don't have to avoid the phone or the mailbox anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
That's kind of living the dream, I guess. I don't know.
No, what advice would you give to someone who wants to kick their own indie book off at this point? You've done this now, and you've got some experience in it.
Yes. Advice. Okay, first, I say this at every guest panel that I do, and this is going to sound a little abrasive. If this is not your addiction, if you are not obsessive about your project, if you do not show it to more than just your mom and dad and take the critiques and try to get better and be better and demand more of yourself, please do not disrespect the artists in the room by taking up a table that should go to somebody who feels that way. If you are going to do this, it has to be the thing that you care about. It has to be something that you say, I need to do this. This is a story that has to be told. I do this because I want to be the person to tell the next great story. Because something hit me, so something has to hit you. And my advice is just love it. Love it. Always try to be better. never think you're the best, because then you're going to stop trying to improve. And pay attention to the people who know more than you, because there's a reason why they know more, because they've made more mistakes already.
Chris, I actually want to kind of wrap it up there, because I think that's a great way to close things off, is, your piece of advice there. And I really appreciate the time you spent with us and walking the floor. I mean, this has been awesome. Cool, right? It's a real cool thing to do, because it's not something I normally would get to do with you, because usually I'm running off to do things, you're running off to do things, and it's been a real pleasure to be with you. So we've been with Chris Campana and his graphic novel First World and The Gray.
The Way of the Gray. You can go on redanvilcomics.com, and they'll have all sorts of stuff. Also on Facebook, it's The Way of the Gray, and also First World on Facebook.
Yeah, and The Art of Chris Campana is also on Facebook, so take a look there. You're on Instagram, you're on all the social media, which we will include as part of the links with the podcast. So you've been listening to Legends of the Panel, and this has been an interview on the floor at HeroesCon 2016.
This has been a presentation of the Geek Culture Cast Network. To find out more, email us at geekculturecastnetwork@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @geekculturecast.